Hello, welcome to CBA. This is me, Hamza Dabchirin, and here is our top stories. Somaliland President sends a strong rebuke to Somalia. Clashes between Somalia army and militia broke out in Penadil. Somalia Prime Minister reserves 30% of parliament seats for women in upcoming election. Ethiopia begins constructing new town in northern Amhara region. 5 people killed as army soldier alleged shooting rampage in Uganda. Welcome again to CBA. Somaliland President Musa Bihi Abdi has called on Somalia government officials and opposition candidates not to interfere in Somaliland political affairs. Musa Bihi also said that those who use the name of Somaliland running for parliament in Somalia do not represent Somaliland.
Somalia iyana doorasha ka socota way dhibaatada iyaga wariga marbayaan Allah saad.
Somaliland President Musa Bihi criticized Somalia for alleged interference in Somaliland and sent a strong rebuke to Somalia government officials and opposition candidates not to interfere in Somaliland's political affairs. He said that those who use the name of Somaliland running for parliament in Somalia do not represent them, but they are just Somaliland diaspora in Mogadishu, like others who live in Kenya and other parts of the world.
mucaaradkooda iyo muxaafidkooda madaxa mucaaradka xamar jooga iyo madaxweynahooda.
To the politicians in Somalia, we're both Somali, we're neighbors, we're not enemies, we're just divided in politics and decided to form 2 different countries. However, when you unilaterally agree that Somaliland's parliament will be elected in Mogadishu, fully conscious of the weight that decision and repercussions, then it's clear you're against us.
baarlamaanka Soomaaliya soo jeeda xamar laga dhex dooranaya Banaadir bal arintaasi markaad ereyga leedihiin miisaanka ugu melka dhacwlaya waa garanaysaane maxaa Soomaaliland ugu quuraysaan erey.
Unity with Somalia in 1991 and dissociated itself from what's happening in Somalia and seeking global recognition by holding free and fair elections just to get the world's attention. However, the concerted efforts haven't paid off for many host of reasons. Somalia spoke loud and clear that Somalia remains unified unless its people negotiate. Military clashes between Somalia's army and unknown gunmen broke out in the capital of Somalia, Mogadishu, just days ahead of the presidential and parliamentary elections. Gunmen attacked the Somali army based in South Hilwa of Mogadishu. Initial reports say there were no civilian casualties immediately reported, but feared there could be losses of both of the warring parts. The government has not issued an official report of this incident. The Somalia security forces have begun to make house-to-house search to apprehend those behind the attacks. For the past weeks, Somalia police officers conducted security operations in some parts of the city to tighten and prevent future terrorist attacks in the region. In the last 2 decades, there were attacks and suicide bombings in the capital Mogadishu, but no group has yet claimed responsibility of this latest attack in Mogadishu targeted Somalia army forces. The outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump declared withdrawal of U.S. troops from Somalia late this month and will relocate them to neighboring countries including Djibouti and Kenya. The U.S. government affirmed their withdrawal from Somalia will not stop from them to mitigate terrorist attacks in the region. A Kenyan military forces convoy was Monday targeted with an improvised explosive device. The latest attack against KDF soldiers in Somalia. Al-Shabaab, in a statement posted on its affiliate online media, claimed responsibility for the attack, saying several soldiers were killed in the attack. A Kenyan military forces convoy was Monday targeted with an improvised explosive device, which is the latest attack against KDF soldiers in Somalia. According to reports, one of the KDF military vehicles has run over the improvised explosive device in Hosingo of Lower Juba region of southern Somalia. The device is suspected to have been planted by Al-Shabaab fighters. It is not yet clear for the casualties of this blast, but locals confirmed that the vehicle was extensively damaged. The Kenyan government has not commented on the attack on its military, which is working under the framework of African Union mission in Somalia. Al-Shabaab, in a statement posted on its affiliate online media, claimed responsibility for the attack, saying several soldiers were killed in the attack. Last Saturday, 2 military vehicles belonging to KDF hit improvised explosive devices suspected to have been planted by Al-Shabaab along the Doble Road of Lower Juba region. We are still in Somalia. Nearly a third of Somalia's parliamentary seats will be reserved for female members in the upcoming election. The Prime Minister said a measure long demanded by women's rights campaigners in the Horn of African nation.
While welcoming Saturday's announcement by Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble, some women's group cautioned that implementing the measure in time for the February 8th poll would be challenging and dependent on the commitment of clan leaders. Somalia has been driven by civil war since 1991, and due to the fragile security situation, elections consist of clan delegates choosing members of parliament as opposed to a one-person, one-vote electoral system. Mr. Roble made the quota pledge after talks with female MPs who currently hold 24% of the 329 seats in Somalia's lower and upper houses of parliament, according to the Inter-Parliamentary Union, the IPU. Ensuring that clan leaders nominate enough women representatives will be vital to securing the full 30% quota, women activists said. The seats are shared among clans. We want assurances that we will reach our target of 30% women in the next parliament, said Suad Salah, a co-founder of Lead Now, a grassroots movement aimed at increasing women's political voice. Somalia has high rates of child marriage and gender violence, including rape and female genital mutilation. The United States says 45% of women are married before 18, while 98% have undergone FGM. Women's rights groups says a stronger voice at the top would have a trickle-down effect, helping women at the grassroots level fight abuse, discrimination and inequality. Ruqayya Muhyiddin, 38, who is an aspiring to run as a candidate in the capital Mogadishu, has also expressed concern over whether the clan leaders would choose women candidates. Initially, we doubted we would get our share in the next parliament. I appeal for our cultural leaders to consider the Prime Minister's latest pledge for women.
And now let's go to Ethiopia. Ethiopia Pro Ground on Saturday began building a new dam worth $125 million in North Shewa, Amhara region. Construction is expected to be completed within 3 years.
Ethiopia broke ground on Saturday and began building a new dam worth $125 million in North Shewa, Amhara region. Construction is expected to be completed within 3 years. According to Amhara mass media agency, the dam, named Achima Chacha, will be 45.5 meters tall, 371 meters long, and capable of storing 55 million cubic meters of water. The groundbreaking ceremony was attended by Ethiopian Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy, Seleshi Bekele. Upon completion, 7,000 hectares of land will be able to be developed, benefiting more than 28,000 families in the region. The Chinese Civil Engineering Corporation, in cooperation with the Water and Construction Works Corporation of the Amhara region, is building a dam. Ethiopia also recently inaugurated the Italian-built €2.5 billion Kiyosha hydroelectric power project in Kiyosha, located in southern nationalities and peoples region of the country. Although Ethiopia is often called Water Tower of Africa due to its larger share of water resources, only a small percentage of its capabilities have been utilized, and sanitation in the country is among the lowest in the world.
Kings of Kenyans who perished in 2019 Ethiopian Airlines crash are among beneficiaries of $2.5 billion fines levied on Boeing for fraud charges. The U.S. Justice Department announced the deal between the plane maker and the Federal Aviation Administration last Friday.
The payments that will see Boeing avoid conspiracy charges related to the plane's flown design includes $243.6 million fine to the FAA and $1.77 billion to the Ethiopian Airlines and Lion Air. Crash victims, on the other hand, received $500 million. This comes less than a month after the U.S. aircraft maker offered to set a record of $1 billion compensation to families of victims of Ethiopian Airlines and the Lion Air GT610 in Indonesia. The extra payment will see each family receive at least $1.4 million per victim on top of the final compensation agreed in December. Manuel van Riebeck of Riebeck Law Chartered, who represents at least 88, said that they have facilitated all those families represented from both Boeing MAX 8 crashes to get their money from 2 other funds previously established by Boeing pro bono. We will represent again the majority of families of passengers and crew members from the MAX 8 crashes to collect the settlement proceeds as soon as its fund is established. Rebek said, in 2018, an Ethiopian Airlines just headed for Nairobi, Kenya, crashed shortly after takeoff from Addis Ababa Bole International Airport, killing 149 on board, including 32 Kenyans. The same had happened on October 29, 2018, where Lion Air Flight 610 and a Boeing 337 MAX crashed shortly after takeoff in Indonesia, killing all 189 passengers and crew on board.
A Uganda Army serviceman on Monday allegedly shot at least 5 people and injured several others before he was killed by security officers. The incident happened in Nansana on the outskirts of the capital, Kampala.
The dead included 2 paramilitary police personnel, a police constable and a civilian. The civilian was driving her mother to work in a metropolis. The Ugandan police identified the shooter as Dennis Omaro, who held the rank of Lance Corporal. The army said it had launched an investigation into the deadly shooting.
The cause of the shooting is not yet clear. We are trying to investigate and find out why he did that. But otherwise, as UPDF, we highly condemn that. It's not in our operation standards, and his action does not reflect the entire mind of UPDF.
Initial reports said Dennis Omaro had a misunderstanding with his security colleagues before shooting at them. Others said he had been drinking before opening fire on his colleagues at the scene of the accident. Attacks by security personnel on their colleagues or civilians is common in Uganda. Last February, a paramilitary police personnel shot 2 colleagues dead after disagreement. He then turned the gun on himself. In the same month, a soldier shot dead 3 family members in Gulu, northern Uganda after a land dispute. On Christmas Day of 2020, a soldier shot and killed 4 people in western Uganda. He has since been to 101 years in prison by an army court.
The World Bank plan is to invest over $5 billion over the 5 next years to help restore degraded landscapes, improve agriculture productivity, and promote livelihoods across 11 African countries on its worth of land stretching from Senegal to Djibouti.
World Bank Group President David Malpass announced the investment at the One Planet Summit, a high-level meeting co-hosted with France and the United Nations that is focused on addressing climate change and biodiversity loss. The more than $5 billion in financing will support agriculture, biodiversity, community development, food security, landscape restoration, job creation, resilient infrastructure, rural mobility, and access to renewable energy across 11 countries of the Sahel, Lake Chad, and Horn of Africa. Many of these efforts are in line with the Great Green Wall Initiative. This built on World Bank landscape investment in these countries over the past 8 years that reached more than 19 million people and placed 1.6 million hectares under sustainable land management. Working with many partners, ProGreen, a World Bank Global Fund dedicated to boosting countries' efforts to address landscape degradation, will also invest $14.5 million in 5 Sahelian countries: Burkina Faso, Chad, Niger, Mali, Mauritania. The World Bank Group is the biggest multilateral funder of climate investments in developing countries. In December 2020, the World Bank Group announced an ambitious new target of 35% of its financing to have climate co-benefits on average over the next 5 years.
South Sudanese electricity distributing company has said it will halt power supply if the government does not clear its areas before Tuesday.
In a press statement seen by the East African on Monday, Juba Electricity Distribution Company, JETCO, said it is unable to run its activities due to the unpaid bills. Despite extensive efforts by all stakeholders to prevent this unfortunate action, no workable solutions have been agreed upon on time. The government has not provided the foreign currency required to make overdue payments, it said. The company urged stakeholders to resolve the problem immediately in order for it to resume services and to also pay its power supplier, Ezra Construction and Development Group, which has been unable to pay. Efforts to get comments from South Sudan's Ministry of Energy and Dams were unsuccessful as phone calls and text messages went unanswered. In November 2019, South Sudan launched its first electricity power plant with aims of serving 100,000 households in the first phase of the electricity supply project. The country hopes to produce 100 megawatts of new power by the end of 2021, projected to serve more than 300,000 households. According to the agreement, Ezra Group said it will provide $290 million to put in place the 100 megawatts of new fossil fuel electricity production over the next few years. South Sudan's government was expected to pay back the investment over 17 years. South Sudan does not have a legal framework for its electricity sector, as the National Electricity Bill tabled in Parliament has not been passed. During the 2019 launch of the plant, President Salva Kiir said it was a milestone towards achieving the dream of greater development for the nation.
The South African government said the pandemic in the country is currently at its most devastating, with infection numbers far exceeding the peak experienced in the first wave.
If we are to realize our aspirations for this year, we must do a number of things. We must unite to overcome the grave and persistent deepening crisis that our country faces and our people face, which is the coronavirus pandemic. But the pandemic in our country is now at its most devastating. The number of new infections, the number of hospital admissions, and the deaths that continue to take place have become far higher than it has ever been since the first case was recorded in our country in March of 2020.
In a nationwide address, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that in light of a spike in COVID-19 cases in South Africa, the country will close the 20 remaining open land border posts with neighboring countries for general entries and departures until February 15th. He made it clear that coronavirus vaccines will soon be available to the South African public. The country has chosen to buy vaccine supplies through the multilateral COVAX scheme, which will cover about 10% of the population.
We have put in place a comprehensive vaccination strategy to reach all parts of the country, and we continue to work on this strategy, ensuring that it will be effective. This will be the largest and most complex logistical undertaking in our country's history. It will be far more extensive than our HIV treatment program or even our national, provincial, as well as local government elections in terms of the number of people who have to be reached within a set period or space of time. It will require the active involvement of all spheres of government, all sectors of our society, and all citizens and residents of our country. Our strategy has several parts to it. The first part of our strategy is to acquire enough vaccine doses to reach this population or herd immunity. As the chair of the African Union, we initiated the establishment of an African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team. Having developed a clear strategy on vaccines, we realized that what we now needed was to go and acquire the vaccines. These will be purchased in bulk, and African countries will be able to order vaccine doses from the pool that we've created at the African Union level.
The new virus strain is making an already dire situation worse, as Gauteng province, the country's most populous, which includes the cities of Johannesburg and Pretoria, see hospitals such as the Steve Biko Hospital at a capacity and overwhelmed, as some patients are even being treated on fields outside hospital buildings. South Africa has reimposed coronavirus prevention restrictions such as banning alcohol sales, closing bars, enforcing a curfew and limiting attendance at public gatherings, including church services and funerals. South Africa, which is currently battling its second wave of COVID-19, has 1.2 million confirmed COVID-19 cases.
After over a month of closure, commercial traffic on the road between Cameroon's port city of Douala and the Central African Republic, capital Bangui, resumed on Tuesday.
The came after a meeting on Monday between core government officials and the United Nations peacekeeping mission, which agreed to accompany convoys transporting goods from Cameroon into the war-torn country. In agreement with MINUSCA, United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Central African Republic, traffic will resume on Tuesday, January 12, 2021. MINUSCA will ensure the protection of each convoy with air support. Core's Prime Minister Firmin Ingrebada announced late Monday. Ingrebada also said they had decided to set up a crisis unit to specifically manage this issue, which has had a huge impact on the Central African economy. He said an assessment of the situation will be made 3 days after the resumption of traffic. The road between Douala and Bangui was closed last month following repeated rebel attacks at a border town. Several UN peacekeepers from Bangladesh, Burundi and Cameroon have been killed and several others injured in separate rebel attacks in the war-torn country in recent weeks. Some 30,000 people fled into neighboring Cameroon, Chad, the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, and the Republic of Congo. The United Nations Refugee Agency said tens of thousands more have been displaced inside the country. The situation in the CAR, a landlocked Central African country, has been tensed after the Constitutional Council rejected former President Francois Bozize's candidacy for the December 27, 2020 elections. The former general seized power in the 2003 coup but was overthrown in the 2013 rebellion. Several militia groups, some close to Bozize, have since attacked civilians, armed forces and UN peacekeeping forces, forcing Archange Touadéra, who has won a second term as president, has reiterated his commitment to peace.
The U.S. State Department on Monday designated Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, reversing an Obama-era decision just 9 days before U.S. President Donald Trump left his office. U.S. Pompeo to visit Brussels on Wednesday to meet NATO chief. Trip to the NATO headquarters expected to be Secretary of State's last trip as a top diplomat of outgoing President Donald Trump.
Washington has accused the government in Havana of oppressing its own people and of aiding and abetting Venezuela's socialist president Nicolas Maduro, who was considered illegitimate by the United States. In a statement, the department said Cuba had earned the designation for repeatedly providing support for acts of international terrorism in granting safe harbor to terrorists. The steps marks the latest action by the outgoing administration to lock in policies before Trump's term ends. In 2015, the administration of Barack Obama removed Cuba from the terrorism list as Obama sought to build ties with the country after decades of animosity. Relations soured again during Trump's presidency as the U.S. rolled back most of the easing of the economic embargo against the Caribbean state. The Trump administration's move will hamper any efforts by Democratic President-elect Joe Biden to resume a path towards rapprochement with Havana. Other countries on the State Department's terrorism list include Iran, North Korea, and Syria. As a result of the designation, people and countries engaging in certain trade with Cuba will be penalized, according to the department. U.S. foreign assistance will be restricted and defense exports and sales will be banned.
And that is our news bulletin for this time. Thank you very much. I am Hamza Dabshiri.